All right, so we've learned up to now a little bit about this week's Torah portion. It talked about the general form of the tabernacle in the desert, how it looked. It was something like this, something like this. This is the proportions are totally not right over here, but something like this. It was just like this box inside of a big a courtyard. And in front of this box was the altar. The box was much smaller, in fact, than this. And this box was covered over by skins of animals. It was covered over by skins of animals and by tapestries that were made of different colored wool, different colored wool. So we discussed in class, we discussed the Aron. Let's see, we have a pointer over here. We have a paron. We discussed the Aron, remember, and with the top on the top on the covering, and from the covering came these two faces of like angels with wings, and which we explained what that is in the Hasidut class in the morning, and the poles that were in them, and that was in the Holy of Holies. And then actually we skipped over something, and that's the table where the bread was. It was called the face bread. The bread was faced like a sort of a U, and it was put into these 12 different molds, 6 on each side. We skipped learning that, and they had 2 posts. Here's a picture that's fairly accurate, actually. There's a picture over here of the, I saw it here, something like this. There were 2 beams here that held, and 2 beams on the other side opposite them, that held these 6 trays. And here also, 2 beams on the other side that held these 6 trays, and they were put on this table. And these breads were removed. They were put there every Erev Shabbos and removed from Shabbos, and they would be eaten by the Kohanim. And they were made from matzah. It wasn't leavened bread. And and it was always soft. It was always fresh from the beginning to the end of the week. So we skipped over learning about that. This was 12 amas high, right? How high was it? 12 amas high. 12 amas high means about 18 feet. Straight, yeah, is that right? 18 feet. 12 amas is 18 feet, right? High. That's how I no. Must have been 12 tefachim. 6 tefachim. Yes, 12 tefachim, not 6 amas high. So 12 tefachim is, let's say, 2.5 feet, something like that high. This whole thing. Is that right? Anyway, we'll have to. Yes, that's right. It's a little bit shorter than the candelabra, which the candelabra was 18 tefachim high. Okay, and that's where the candelabra was. We skipped over that. We also skipped over learning about the golden altar, the inner golden altar, which is here. And then also there's the big altar, which is that's made of copper altar on the outside. And we also did not have a time to learn about all the curtains that went around that made the courtyard, and the curtains, and also the skins of these tchashim, which is some sort of a strange animal, and of elim, which is, I guess, ram skins. And then there were also 3 types of wool drapes that went over. Tchelet, argamon, tolat, sheni, 3 different colors. And then there were also the drapes that went over the coverings here of the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodeshim. There's also a drape here. See, here's a drape here. There's a drape like that. And these were decorated. They had a picture of a lion on one side and an eagle on the other side. Very complicated. Okay, that's what we accomplished in these few days of our week. So now you're basically prepared for this week's Torah reading. What about the Haftorah? The Haftorah is part of the usually the prophets, but in this week it's not. It's part of the book of Kings. And if you know anything about the kings of Israel, it began with King David, and he made the plans for the Holy Temple. He did not build the Holy Temple. And his son, King Solomon, he built the Holy Temple. Now, the Holy Temple was built in the same basic form as this Mishkan was built, but this central building was the Mishkan, where the candelabra was, and etc. It was all in the same arrangement, but in King Solomon's building, this part was twice as big. Instead of being 10 amas, it was 20. Here, from here to here, so it was 20 big. Here, the same thing. Instead of being 30 amas, it was 60. We'll see in 1 minute. That's going to be the Haftorah that we're going to learn, the measurements of this. And in front of it, he built, all around it, he built sort of rooms that were built around. And in front of it, he built a big, a room which was called the Heichal, which had stuck over the side. That was big, so it looked like a T, sort of. But with the rooms, so the rooms filled up the overlap where the T was, so it looked square. So this is something like what the Temple of King Solomon looked like. It was different here, you see. Does it have a side view? Nah, you can go in, see it. Anyway, you can never tell how accurate these things are anyway, but anyway, this is basically what it looked like. The Temple of King Solomon. So we're going to read about that now. Let's read about that. And he also coated the whole thing with cedar wood on the inside, on the floors, on the top, and not on the floors, on the top, we'll see, on the walls, on the outside also, there was a certain amount of cedar wood. So it was a very commodity that was very in demand. In Israel, there wasn't any cedar wood, but there was in Lebanon, in a place called Tzur. And there was a king called Hiram of Tzur that he really liked King Solomon. They had all sorts of commercial agreements also between the countries and peace agreements, etc. That was in the time of King Solomon. So let's have a look. Now, we've finished learning about the tabernacle that traveled with the Jews in the desert. And in this basic form, there was also a yard around it. That was, it looked like this. Where was it? Here. This is this tabernacle. Right? We talked about over. This is just a big picture of this, the tabernacle. And it was in the middle of this big yard, this big courtyard. Right? The big courtyard. And here was the altar and the laver. The Kohanim would wash their hands before they started to work, the priests. Okay, so that's what it looked like. That was the tabernacle. So we finished that pretty much with all the vessels that are inside of it, the ark, which is in the Holy of Holies, the bread, the 12 loaves of bread, the menorah, right? This is the laver that they wash their hands from. This is the golden altar, and this is the big altar that's outside, the copper altar that's outside. That was here. Okay, now let us learn about the Temple of King Solomon. Temple of King Solomon. I'm tempted to try to find it over here by Yecheni. It looked something like this, but all right, should I try? Why not? I'll try. Let's give it a try. Here we go. Here. Let's have it a try. 1 minute. Surat Beit HaMikdash Harishon. Will this work? Who knows? Let's try it. Ready? Oh, here it is. It worked. All right. Can you see this? Can you see it? Is there any difference over here? All right. Well, we'll try it anyway. Here we go. Ready? Let's go. Let's make this small. And here we go. Stop share. Let's go back. Yes. All right. Yes. All right. Ready? This is in the book of Kings, first book of Kings. First book near the beginning. the first book of Kings. So King David, in the book of Samuel, so King David, he fights all his battles. All the stories about King David are in the book of Samuel. And the book of Kings begins as King David is dying. So he gives it over to King Solomon, his son, and he says, you'll build a temple. Hashem natan chachma l'shlomo. God gave wisdom to King Solomon. Kasher diberlo, like God said to him. Vayehi shalom ben Hiram, and there was peace between Hiram. Hiram was the king of a place called Sor, which was somewhere in Lebanon, and between Shlomo. Vayichrutu brit shneim, and they made a covenant between the two of them. There's some of the explanations. Let's see. Here's some commentaries. I didn't look at these commentaries. I looked at other commentaries. I was just happy to get this. Okay, good. God gave wisdom to King Solomon. That's what we said. Next sentence. And King Solomon took taxes from all the Jewish people. He wants to build the temple. And the tax was, what did he take as a tax? Not money. 30,000 people, 30,000 working men. This is what we're going to be reading right after the reading of the Torah. He sent them to Lebanon, to Lebanon, 10,000 men, every month. Chalifot Chodesh. They would work for 1 month. Hayu b'Lebanon, Shneim Chodeshim. In 2 months, they would be at home. In other words, they would rotate. There were 30,000 people, and every month, 10,000 of them would work. Then they would come back home, and the next 10,000 would work. The next one, so it comes up that everyone would be working for 1 month and resting for 2 months. They would go to what did they have to go to Lebanon for? We'll see. Adoniram. There was a person called Adoniram. He was the one that oversaw this whole business of taking. He was the one that was, he was the, how do you say, manager of all these 30,000 men. Yeah. So they would work in and Shlomo had also, in addition to this, another 70,000 that were lifting. Sevel, Ushmonim Elef Chotzev Bahar. And there was, these were the 30,000, they were the ones that brought the wood. But there was also 70,000 men that were porters. They could lift and carry things, or they knew how to move things. And there was another 80,000 that were hewing out stones from the mountain, because they needed stones for the temple. Lavad misarei hanitzavim l'shlomo. These are except in addition to the overseers of King Solomon. They oversaw the work. There were 3,300 men, harodim ba'am, and they controlled the people that were doing the work. They were overseeing the work, and they would make sure that the work was done properly and the people were working hard, and etc. Okay, we really don't have the time to read all the commentaries, Rashi and this, everything, etc., but it's tremendously interesting. Okay, ready? The king commanded that they would take big stones, avanim yakarot. There's two different opinions. Avanim yakarot means that they were very heavy, and another opinion says that they were very valuable because they were whole. They were whole. Anyway, this was going to be the foundation of the house. Avnei gazit, stones that were hewn out from the mountain. We're going to see that there was not allowed to be any hewing or metal touching metal, what is it, the carving of the stones in the house. Once they got on the mount of the mountain where the Holy Temple would be built, is they couldn't do it anymore because metal is used as a war instrument, and they didn't want to have anything that even related vaguely to war. So they hewed out the stones from the mountain. So, by the way, you see these little notes? So this is also note. This is how you sing it. This is the cantillation. Vayivsolu b'nei Shlomo u'bonei Chirom. That was b'nei Chirom. That was that was the other king, the king of Tzor. U'bnei Chirom hagivlim vayichinu hoitzim v'avanim livnos habayit. It says that the workers of King Solomon and the workers of King Hiram, that they are the ones that they hewed out the stones from the mountain. Just one moment, please. Just one moment. I want to look at something. Yes. Yeah, who are these Gibalites? Who are these Gibalim? The Gibalim were people it was some sort of a city in the northern Lebanon, and they were known for their masonry. Oh, that's a good word, masonry skills. The people of the Gibalim. Okay, so they had all the people over there working for them. I see you have to go to the next chapter, right? Excuse me 1 second. Trying to get, oh, here we go. There we go. Good. All right. Vayahi, and it was B'shmonim Shana, Ha'arba Meot Shana, L'tzeit B'nei Yisrael Me'eretz Yisrael. It was after 480 years after the Jewish people left Egypt, B'shana HaRevis B'chodesh, in the 4th year of the rulership of King Solomon, in the month of Ziv, which is the 2nd month of the rulership of King Solomon and the Jewish people, Vayiven Abayit Lashem. The house was built for God. They finished building it. Okay, what is this 440 years? The Jewish people got out of Egypt, and they 40 years were in the desert, and they entered the land of Israel. And when they entered the land of Israel, it took them another 14 years to divide it up. We talked about this before. In that time, the tabernacle was built in a place called Gilgal. And then the tabernacle, that was only 14 years. Then the tabernacle moved to a place called Shiloh. There it was there for a long time. It was there for 369 years. And then it moved to a place called Nob, and then a place called Gimon. And there was 50 some years altogether. And who was ruling over the Jewish people all this time? Those were the Shoftim, what was called the judges, the Shoftim. The last of the judges was Samson. Among the judges was also Devorah. You remember the song of Devorah we read? And there was Gideon. Anyway, there were like 15 judges, something like that, 15 judges, and they ruled in this 440-year period. So it's 440 years of judges, 40 years of wandering in the desert, That was until King Solomon actually built the temple. So it was built 480 years after the Jews left Egypt. The house that King Solomon built was 60 amos long and 20 amos wide and 30 amos tall. Okay, now this is what I told you before, right? I told you before that we're talking about this, just the central place, the place where the tent was 10 by 30. When King Solomon built his temple, it was 20 by 60. So that's what he says, twice the size. But then he also built in front of it also what was called an ulam. So let's see if we can get this picture over here of what it looked like a little bit. 1 minute. Share the screen. There we go. The King of Solomon. See, King Solomon's was something like this. The second temple was much bigger. Here. I know the pictures are not so, a little bit shady. This is, here it is. See, something like this. Can we get, let's see, we'll get a picture here. Oh, here. Here is the temple. Here it is. There was there's this room here. This was 20 by 20. This was the Holy of Holies. In the tabernacle, it was 10 by 10. It was 20 by 20. This outer room in the tabernacle, it was 10 by 30. In King Solomon's, it was 20. Mistake. In the tabernacle, it was 10 by 20. 10 by 20. It was, let's get this picture thing over here again. I don't know. There we go. In the tabernacle, it was 10 wide. The Holy of Holies was 10 by 10. This part was 10 by 20. By King Solomon's, it was exactly twice. This was 20, so it was 20 by 20, the Holy of Holies, 20 by 20. And the outside room was 20 by 40. Right, so it was exactly double size, 20 by 40. But then King Solomon, he built a lot of rooms around this, which we're going to see this in a moment. And also in front, he built a thing which was called the ulam. And this was an additional to what it was in the tabernacle in the desert. And then in the desert, when they had just this open courtyard, right, and the only thing in it was the big altar. So here they had also rooms for storage. Rooms for storage. Okay, but let's just see what part of it we're talking about here in our Torah portion. Ready? Let's go. So again, the house that King Solomon built, it was 60 amas long, right? The tabernacle was 30 amas long, 20 amas wide, and 30 amas high. Now here's a little bit of a difference, because in the desert, the tabernacle, the walls were these wooden poles that were 10 amas high. They were 10, and here they're 30 amas high. So it was 3 times as tall. Then there was this ulam that I told you about, which is on the face of the, right? This building that was like a T, this actual, an additional room. This was 20 amas long. This is on the width of the house. And it was, and it was 10 amas wide on the face of the house. So what does he say? One minute. Yeah, so he says that it went over. When he said that it was 20, it means that it was 20 amas over the other amount. So it was shaped like a T. Let's just see that picture again if we can. Like this. Here. Here. It extended over here 10 amas and extended over there 10 amas. So it was in addition. I'm sorry. 10 amas here, 10 amas here. It extended over. So it was longer than this. So it was, in other words, it would be 20 and then 20 over here and 20 more over there. So it would come out to be that it was 60 long altogether. That's how I understand what it said. There we go. On the whole and the temple that King Solomon built, there were windows, and these windows were shkufim atumim. Shkufim atumim means that they were narrow on the inside and wide on the outside to show that light came out of the holy temple to the rest of the world. He built the wall of the house, and then there was a Yetzia Soviv. He built these rooms all around the walls of the house. Heichal, the Devir, and the Devir. Now, there's two different opinions of what the Devir is. The Devir, some people say that it's the division between the Holy and the Holy of Holies. And some people say the word Devir means the Holy of Holies itself, the inside. Let's see what he says over here. Rashi says, he doesn't explain. Doesn't explain what it is. Okay, so in other words, around the walls of the Holy and the Holy of Holies, and from the outside, he built. Now, it says that the walls, they were slanted a little bit from the outside. The outside, they were slanted a little bit so that they would be able to hold these rooms that are going to be made around the outside. That's what he says. He built Yetzia Saviv. He built like rooms all around the temple. And so let's see if we can find a picture of this here. I'll show you a picture of this also here. See here, it was built like this. This was the central room that he's talking about. And this is the ulam, which extended over the sides. And King Solomon also built rooms all around this with cedar wood. He built rooms, and there were three floors. And the rooms were progressively bigger. So the top floors were a little bit bigger than the bottom ones. And why? Because it says that the walls from the outside slanted in a little bit. So in order to enable these rooms to be a little bit larger, it's also a little bit more stable that way, because therefore it slanted downward so that the outside was even, right? The outside was even, and but the walls against the walls, it was slanted. So this is what we're talking about. Just this one area here. Here we see another picture. This is of King Solomon. Right? This was the ulam. This was the holy, also called the tent of meeting. This is the Holy of Holies, and around it were built these what's called yitzios. They were built these rooms. We'll see that there's going to be 3 floors. He said, if you look at it from the outside, it looks like this, but I don't think it would look like this. It would look like this more. You see the big side from the outside. Here, like this. See, it would be big. This is the outer courtyard here. Do we have a better picture over here? I don't know. You start looking through these pictures and you see a lot of these people had very fertile imaginations, but they didn't really have how do you say, the calmness to sit down and actually learn the laws. Okay, here's sort of a better picture. You can see that this is like the ulam. It's bigger here on the outside, see? And this underneath here is where the Holy and the Holy of Holies are. Underneath, the Holy of Holies would be in this back part, and the Holy would be in this front part. And then there would be the ulam in front of both of them, like this. That would be the ulam. This would be the holy, and this is the Holy of Holies. And then King Solomon built all these rooms around, so that it wasn't from the outside. It took up much more space than it did from the inside. That's it. Yes. So it says on the wall, the outside wall, there was a Yetzirah. He coated it with a house around, and he made also like protrusions that came out from the outside, like I showed you in the picture. The lower one, it says, was 5. The lower row of rooms was 5 amas wide. The middle, second floor of these rooms was 6 amas. The third room was 7 amas, and this is all the way around on the side from the outside. It says Migros Natan, because King Solomon, when he built it, he took away a little bit of the walls on the upper levels, Saviv around outside, so that they wouldn't have to make any hooks or anything in the walls, actually the walls of the house of the Holy Temple. It would lean against these parts that went in, the rooms, right? The room would be built, like let's say the Holy Temple was like that, so the rooms would lean against it this way. See, here's the Holy Temple would be something like this. You have a picture, like this. The walls would be a little bit slanted out like this, and the rooms would be straight. I'm trying to get the picture here. But the rooms would be straight, like this. And then there would be one on top of the other, so that there would be a little bit bigger on the inside, because it's slanted in. And these rooms were used for storage and for the Kohanim also to change their garments. And the house, the whole tabernacle, this whole temple, the first temple King Solomon made, it was made from whole, complete stones. In other words, it was not made from bricks, and it wasn't made from stones, little stones that you put them together. It was made from huge, large stones, makavos, vagarzan, and hammers and hatchets, and any vessels of iron were not heard in the house, in the holy house, when it was being built, like I explained to you. And then there was a opening for these rooms on the outside. It opened up from the south side, which the south side is, if you were coming into the holy temple, you came in from the east. The east was you were walking toward the west, and the south was on your left. That's where the south was, on your left. So there was an opening on the left side of the house, on the right side. The right side means if you're looking from the house outward, it's called the right side. And Baluli Malu, there were sort of like stairs. Anyway, you would go up from the lower floor to the middle floor, and from the middle floor to the third floor. But we're talking about the rooms that were around the outside that were built by King Solomon, around the outside of the temple. It says the house was finished and it was coated. The house was coated on the roof and on the walls, on the outside walls, and also on the inside with arazim, with the cedar wood. And he built these rooms, which were on the outside of the house. They were 5 amos. Each one of them was 5 amos high. And then he coated them all, covered them all with the cedar wood. Again, cedar wood. That's why he needed so much wood. And the word of God was to King Solomon, and God said, this house which you are building, if you walk in my statutes and my laws,
and you keep all the commandments and go in them, then and you fulfill my words and with them, then I will fulfill my words, my promise with you that I spoke to you, that I spoke to King David, your father. V'shachanti, and I will dwell among the Jewish people, and I will never leave my people, Yisrael. This is unconditional. This doesn't have one thing to the two. There's two promises. First of all, if you do what I say, that's the previous one, then I will keep the promises that I made to King David, namely the first temple will stand forever. And even if you don't do what I say, that's the second one. Even if you don't do what I say, then nevertheless I will dwell among the Jewish people, and I will never leave my people, the Jewish people, ever. Right, if you will. And that is the end of this week's Torah, Haftorah, the promise of God to King Solomon. He's never going to abandon the Jewish people. And if the Jewish people would not have sinned, the first temple would have been the last temple. That would have been it. But we know what happened. Okay, my friends, have a good day with Mashiach. Now, tomorrow morning at 8:15, we will learn a Sikha from the Rebbe, one of the Sikhas in Yiddish, because with God's help, we finished the Devar Malchut of this week, and we also finished the Torah Or. We thank God. Had a lot done talking about the temple and the two cherubs and the Jewish people facing God, and God faces the Jewish people, and we react to God. God reacts to us. Baruch Hashem, we covered a lot. Have a good day with Mashiach now, and hope to see you all tomorrow.